books that influenced my writing style. I really don't think of it in those terms of my writing style. That's an overused term, in my opinion. I mean, what is a writing style? I just write. I've said before that when I started writing Perfidious Tides, I had no clue what genre I was writing in to begin with. So writing style is kind of a misnomer. I think of it more along the lines of books that influenced my love of reading and therefore writing. And if you hear little pauses in here, I'm sipping coffee or something. I'm sitting here rambling into a microphone all by myself. It's kind of weird to do things like this. I've said before, it seems kind of strange just sitting here talking to myself. But I've seen the downloads on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, things like that. So somebody's listening at some point or another. Or at least they downloaded, pretend to listen. The first book that I can remember reading on my own. Now, my mother, I may have said this before, read to us continually as children, my sister and I. And the first book I remember, I forget the name of it, but it was about the little girl lost at sea. She was in a dinghy. There was like a bull with a ring in its nose. And they went to this island. That's the first book I can remember my mother reading to me. Now, the first book I can remember reading on my own was from Clio Elementary School in Southeast Alabama. And this had to have been in late 80s when I was in Clio Elementary. It may have been third or fourth grade, probably fourth grade. Fourth grade pretty much when my love of reading kind of developed. And Miss Emily Wilkerson was my teacher at that time. Now, I may have said this before, I lose track of what I said, but I can remember my love of history really taking root in fourth grade because there was this Alabama history book, or it was an Alabama history course. In the book, I couldn't get enough of it. I read ahead of the class. And there was a section in there about John Pelham, the Civil War soldier that was from Alabama, that was fairly famous. And I was so enamored with it because my middle name was John. So she let me read that entire section in front of the class. Imagine, doing that in fourth grade, because I was a really shy kid. Kind of find it hard to believe because I start rambling and talking, but I really don't like talking. I really don't like, putting myself out there at any point in time. But I did it, and in the fourth grade, as I said, I was in Clio Elementary School. The librarian was a lady named Miss Faye Johnson. And she recommended this book, or maybe I found the book. I can't remember which one. I remember it was nondescript. It was just a binding. I mean, the cover was non-existent. It had "Where the Red Fern Grows," Wilson Rawls on the cover. And I don't know how I discovered this book, because any fourth grader walking around the library would not have really stopped twice to look at this book. Now, later versions that I saw had the main character Billy on the front with his two dogs, Old Dan and Land. But this book had none of that. It was just a nondescript cover. And I checked that book out at the Clio Library. That book really got me hooked on reading. I fell in love with Where the Red Fern Grows. I am 50 years old, and that is still my favorite book of all time. As a teacher, history teacher, now I take my students to the library once a week. And I always check to see if anybody's checked out those 2 copies that's in their library of Where the Red Fern Grows. And if a kid comes up to me and asks, do I recommend any books, or what's my favorite book, I know where those 2 books are in the library. I'll walk straight over there and say, this is my favorite book of all time. But get you some handkerchiefs, get you something to cry in. Because I don't care how tough you are, the ending of that book will make you cry. Wilson Rawls brought those characters to life so vividly. I can remember as a fourth grader, what was that, 1985, 1986. I was so overtaken with that book as the saddest part got there. And spoilers, if you haven't read the book, go stop now, go check it out, go find it, buy it, read it, come back. You'll be glad you did. But I remember reading that part where old Dan died. And I can still see the book in my hands. And when that one line that still gets me to this day, like I'm 50 years old, teacher, football coach, but it still makes my eyes well up a little bit. And I usually misquote it, but it's something along the lines of, with one last thump of his old red tail, his friendly gray eyes closed forever. Now, when I read that, there was Niagara Falls. There were tear stains in that book when I turned it back in. Those dogs became like my own. I felt like I was in the story. And that was all a credit to Wilson Rawls. Now, he only wrote 2 books that I know of, with Red Fern Grows and Summer of the Monkeys. Summer of the Monkeys was not a great a book. That's where the Red Fern Grows. Red Fern is a classic. It will always be a classic. I don't care where we go in a society, the technology that comes available. When you read that book and you go back into early 1900s Oklahoma and Billy and those dogs, and it's not really about the thing, it's about the bond between that boy and those dogs. Old Dan saved his life and gave his own life for Billy. And I understood the book. And in another teacher's class, it was in 8th grade, I believe, Miss Judy Green, her history class, I did a synopsis of the book, a review of the book. And that's the first time I really started thinking about it. And the whole purpose of Old Dan and Little Ann's existence in the book, if you read the book and you start thinking about the book, think about the words, was that they lived so that a dream could be fulfilled. And I remember writing that they could move out of the mountains into the town like the family wanted, and the children could have more. And Old Dan and Little Ann served that purpose. And I remember writing a 2 or 3 page report on it, and I kept it for a long time. I've misplaced it here or there somewhere, but I remember she wrote excellent review on it. And then I started thinking, I'm going to get my own copy of the book, and I'm going to let it end the way I wanted it to end. I wanted it to end when everybody was happy, even though I knew deep down that last chapter had to be there to complete the story. I didn't want it to happen that way. So I have a book right behind me in my bookcase that I've had, I don't know how long, maybe, I know, over 30 years, maybe 40 years, 30, 35 years, something like that. But it is where the Red Fern Grows, but the last chapter has been ripped out. In my book, the story ended on a high note, on a happy note. They win the coon hunt, everything's great. They ride back home, everything, as they say, is history. But deep down, that didn't happen. And as I've written my own stories, I kind of keep that in mind. Everything is not a happy ending. Everything doesn't turn out like you want it to turn out. So that was the first book I can remember reading. Now, the first really series of books that I got into came from that same library. And it was the Hardy Boys collection. And my mind gets a little cloudy when I start thinking about there's so many of those books, and I was very disappointed later on in life when I found out, I think it was Franklin W. Dixon was credited with writing the Hardy Boys books, but I come to find out that it was a series of ghostwriters using that pen name that wrote those stories. It's a little disappointing as you get older to learn something like that, but that is the series that really fostered my love of reading, because I would read one of those a day. getting back to the librarian at the time, Miss Johnson, she would save me books to read. She would like, and I don't know if she did that for everybody, but she did it for me, and I don't know why. I have no clue why. But I remember a book called Cowboys Don't Cry. She gave me that one about this kid that his dad was in the rodeo. He got hurt in a motorcycle accident, had to stay with some other people while his father went on the rodeo circuit. Wasn't my favorite book, but I remember her giving me that book. And there were several others that she would save for me in the Clio Elementary School library. And as I got older, John Grisham came along. And I'm a little bit of a fan of Grisham. I read a lot of his books. I'm not really a fan of his later books. But that very first one, A Time to Kill, I think my sister had it and I got a copy of it, got her copy and read it. That got to me. That was his best work. That was gritty, that was emotional. And I kept thinking to myself, this could never really happen. But hindsight, as you get older, it really could happen. But I remember falling in love with that book, and I read it 2 or 3 times. I haven't read it in several years. I watched the movie not long ago, and I have issues with that movie. I really do, as a Southerner. Not with the content that Grisham wrote, but the way Joel Schumacher presented Southerners in that movie. And I'm talking about white Southerners, black Southerners, all of us together. We were sweaty. It's like air conditioning ceased to exist during these events. And everybody was a stereotype. Every single person in that movie was a stereotype. And I don't think that's the way John Grisham wanted his characters. Now, he did have ultimate say over that movie, I believe I read somewhere. But that movie I have issues with. And I like Matthew McConaughey's performance in that movie, Samuel L. Jackson, Omar Noose, the British guy who played Omar Noose, overdid it. When he said, "Thanks for coming," you know, when he had that meeting with Jake, I'm like, that's not something that a judge would say. That's just a stereotypical cliche of a Southerner, and that got on my nerves. But anyway, getting back to writing, like I said, I think about something and I go off on tangents a little bit. But that was another, John Grisham. Like I said, I've read a lot of his work. His earlier work I like, especially like I said, Time to Kill and The Rainmaker, 2 of my favorite books of his. Now, the rest of them, I can take them or leave them. I read, and let me say this, when I read his book, The Boys from Biloxi, that was right around the time that I started writing myself. I have done a lot of research into the Dixie Mafia, and that book was kind of based on a certain sect of the Dixie Mafia based in Biloxi. And that kind of sparked perfidious ties. I didn't use a whole lot of stuff, about Biloxi. That's where Burt Williams, comes from. But that book kind of sparked it. It wasn't a great book. It was a good book. But it kind of sparked perfidious ties, and here we are today, 4 years later after I read that book. Not many other authors really come to mind when I think of influence. I didn't know what Southern Noir was. I've read several Southern Noir books in the last couple of years just to kind of get myself acquainted with the genre that I'm, kind of tied to right now. Even though I don't like genres and I refuse to be pigeonholed in that. I don't think Come Our Way is going to be in that same vein. I can see where, bands like Metallica did other things in the 1990s to keep them getting pigeonholed as something. Anyway, I read Desperation Row by Michael Farris Smith. I read Tom Franklin and some other supposed leaders in the genre at the time, and my work really doesn't fit with theirs. So there's that. I do a lot of reading of biographies. My goal since 2016 is to read about each and every president, starting with George Washington. I recently finished up Gerald Rudolph Ford. So I'm getting close to the end of that. I read war biographies. I read different things. Not everything that I read is what other people read or think that you should read. I don't know how to really say that. I like to keep an open mind on a lot of things. So I read a lot of different things. I'm racking my mind trying to think of people. But no real individual authors come to the forefront. Now, I have read a lot of Stephen Baxter, hard science fiction. I like his writing. I like his stories. Ark and Flood are two of my favorite books of his. But as far as anybody else, I read a lot. And then I read a lot of fiction. And I've tried to broaden that out a little bit. Find the odd book at different places. Like I found a book called The Gulf, but it was based in Texas. Really strange book. I forgot who wrote it. I found it at a thrift store in Foley, Alabama, I think, and I was down there for a baseball tournament. But I bought some Clive Cussler, and I'm gonna read some of that. I like Mario Puzo, even though I think the Godfather movies are a lot better than the books. But as far as influences, that's about it. I read too broadly to kind of zero in on anybody about what I read, who influenced me. I don't think anybody's influenced the way I write. It is what it is. I'm not trained as a writer. I have a degree in history from Troy University, which, by the way, at this moment, today, we'll be playing in Omaha in the College Baseball World Series. So that is my expertise, if you will, history. And I teach middle school history. I've taught high school history. I've taught high school government for 1 year. But I believe anybody to really know anything, you need to be really broadly read. You need to read. And when I left the school one time, I had the librarian there say it was a good thing for the students to see a man who loved to read. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, not a whole lot of people even love to read anymore. They may read the occasional book here and there, but I am surrounded in my office right here as I'm speaking by 5 bookshelves, and they're almost full. I don't throw away books. I buy them and I keep them, and I catalog them. And I've gotten to the age where I have to have a little database and put a check mark when I read one, because I have picked up a book before, start reading it, and like, I read this before. John Grisham, Wilson Rawls, with Red Fern Grows. If you have not read that book, go get it right now. Go read it. Even if you don't like coon hunting or dog or country stories, that is a story for the ages. But don't tear out the last chapter. Read the book as it's supposed to be read. That was just something I did, and I'm keeping that book. But I know what happens. Well, I guess that finishes up. We're about 20 minutes in, and I've rambled long enough. So until next time, I'll talk to you later.